Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Odd Ones. It's me and Larra again. This time with part 2 of the conversation we were having, where we were kind of going over. Larra has notes from a podcast that she listened to from the ADHD Love podcast.
Yep.
I think they call it Late Bloomers.
Yes.
Is that podcast?
So I really love that name.
Check it out. Yeah, it's really cool. And it goes with their background too. I think all the flowers that they have in the background are supposed to be like late bloomers or something. But yeah, check them out. We'll leave a comment down below, and don't forget to check out all of our social medias. And we really need to make a video discussing our social medias and stuff. But check out all that. Email us if you want us to read your emails. I'm gonna say this just like they did, and I think I'm gonna continue saying it just like they did on To Be Better, which is if you send in an email, it's kind of you scratch our back, we scratch yours, we read the emails on here, and you get the answers and the things that you need out of it. If there's one that's super discreet, super personal, we will keep that between us. With the three of us, I mean. So, and then finally, I'm writing notes. I went over this in the last episode. I'm writing notes. I keep these around. I make notes while I'm reading books and things like that. And I've decided every single time I finish a book and go over the whole book in the podcast, that whenever we're completely done, I will give away these books signed with a copy of the book that I've covered. So the book that we are covering, or that I'm writing down notes for right now, is what is it? Nobody's Coming to Save You by Christopher Burkett.
The inner working of Bjorn's brain.
Yep. A lot of scratches. So, Larra, you're the note keeper, so you're going to continue on with this podcast.
If you haven't watched episode 1, go back and do that. Everything will make a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
But in the first episode, we started talking about...
One more thing. Little warning here. Maybe some not so safe for work. Not explicit, but not so safe for work.
Thunder Stealer.
Oh, I didn't know that's what you were about to do.
Yeah.
I just wanted to catch it before things happen.
If you haven't watched episode 1, that'll make sense too.
Mm-hmm.
So starting off, we are talking about what still is taboo, even though it is rampant everywhere. Everything is hyper sexualized. So I whispered that in case you are at work, you don't get in trouble. Or
hey, over here, Jim's looking at stuff about sex.
Okay, well, now you're in trouble. I think this would be, and I should have said this in the first one, but I think it's a great podcast to watch with your spouse. This all started from
hold on. I just wanted to talk about that real quick. How many times have you been at work or at Walmart on speakerphone, and I'm just like, hey, over here, she farted, or like something funny like that?
I can't put you on speakerphone.
Yeah.
I panic every time. My favorite is when I call you, and within the first 5 seconds of the call, I hear you fart in the background. And it startles me. So, episode 1, or not episode 1, but part 1, we got into sex. And specifically talking
Why'd you say it like that?
I don't know.
Sex.
Specifically talking about, and how appropriate, because it is our anniversary.
Yep.
And I'm very excited that we are spending our anniversary doing this.
Yeah.
And hopefully this later. Pressure. But we are talking about
under pressure, pushing down on me.
Pushing down on you. I don't even know if those are the words. So the difference between the honeymoon phase, I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version, but even more Cliff Notey, the hanging off the Cliff Notes version. We're talking about the difference between the honeymoon phase versus the settled in phase. What does that look like? Where do you feel like the, your communication is as far as that goes, what the social expectations are, and, what our perspectives are in our own intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
So we left off on talking about toys. So the conversation was, in sex often, especially I think we ladies, we are definitely auditory creatures. Hearing the sound of our man being pleased is very pleasing. And, if our mind is not in the game, we're not in the game, where I think you guys are very visual and physical in that aspect. And We can go from at the precipice to shut down very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And it all kind of stemmed from the fact that, you know, the doing the courtesy, if your significant other did not have the chance to get their enjoyment, making sure that you're satisfying them.
Hey, we all bought the ticket to the ride. Let's make sure we get off together.
I want that on a t-shirt. Thank you. But that doesn't mean that has to happen every time, because, and I definitely believe in, our dynamic, because I love pleasing you. And that I'm not just talking about in the bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
making you happy. Like, I could feed you a gourmet dinner and I don't have to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, making you happy makes me happy. And there are definitely, for those who like spicy content, I'm going to say a spicy piece. There's a whole genre of K-inks that are about satisfying your partner and not getting satisfaction. So,
edging. I guess you're edging yourself. What is it called?
Not at all. I mean, not at all in the
What's that
sense
label?
of.
What's the label? Let's label this.
Hang on. What the label for that?
Yeah.
Is like, body worship can go into a part of that, or withholding.
Edging yourself.
I mean, yes, but the insinuation of the edging part is that you bring someone to the edge, then stop, then at some point they will be satisfied.
Maybe,
maybe not. Patreon, you can come see us for more of that.
Or you can watch a Papa Meat video talking about edging.
If you want to hear about somebody else's, yes, you sure can. If you want to learn about that, but if you want to learn our perspective on that, come see us on Patreon. So,
I would edge for Papa Meat.
I know you would, and I would be okay with it. So, let's talk about one of the things that they talked about in this before I circle back around to a complete mindset change. Is I think there's also like intimacy under the influence. And I hear a lot about there are certain drugs that people can take.
Ecstasy.
I knew that'd be what you were thinking. There's also amphetamines that increase the libido.
But the funny thing about that is it lowers the chances of erection.
You're not wrong. And so,
what a miserable freaking mindset to be in right then.
And it turns people into, I think anytime you introduce a substance to that arena. Now, I'm not saying that having alcoholic beverage or 5 or having alcoholic beverages that lowers your inhibitions. And I feel like a lot of times people will do things that, and I specifically brought this up because a situation stuck out in my mind. For some people, they could drink, have a great time, have wild tantric sex and do things that they wouldn't normally do, and it'd be totally okay. And I'm not by any means advocating doing that. I think that it can be a coping mechanism for people who have a harder time getting into that area comfortably. I also think that, like, I have found for myself that I just shouldn't, like, drinking's not for me. But have we had a great time having nothing to do with sex, but having drinks together? Absolutely. It is a depressant. I have found that, I remember one time, this was before we even had our first house together, that I'd had drinks, and I was not very nice to you following sex. And I said something that I meant what should have been meant for a conversation.
I don't even remember this.
Great. Well, I'll put it out there, and
maybe because I was drunk.
No, I mean, you remembered it afterward. And it's still, like, obviously it's still, if that's what, 6 years ago, like, I have to guess that, almost, well, over 6 years ago, that if it still stands out in my mind, I would never want to be in this position again. But it had to do with the same conversation where you had finished and we did not have that strong conversation, that
Mhm.
strong communication skills. I didn't know that I could ask to be satisfied, and for whatever reason, you had got up and you went about your business, and I was like, "You're not going to finish," you know, and I said it hatefully out of hurt and insecurity,
Mhm.
but the alcohol took over, and I said it very aggressively. And I would just advise, you do you. Everybody should just know yourself
Yep.
and know that if you're needing a substance, and I'm not talking about Viagra, people have performance,
Yeah.
whatever works for the two of you. But I would highly suggest communicating with your partner to make sure that you're not doing or saying things that you don't want to. And also, there are people who will do things while under the influence that they would not normally do.
Yeah.
And there can be regret and remorse. And do not, I repeat, do not, this is my public service announcement, do not get consent from a partner that you have not already made a consensual commitment while
Well,
they're drunk.
it's not consent.
Right.
You can't consent if you're under the influence and your inhibitions are lowered. Just like a child can't consent. Neither of those things are suitable. Neither of those things are acceptable. Period. Um, and yeah, I would just leave alcohol out of it, out of the bedroom. Like
Well,
maybe
some people dig that. And
maybe
that's the thing.
one drink. Yeah, but still, it's like you said. Like I feel like those same people who are like, oh yeah, it's all cool now. 5 years down the line, whenever the alcohol becomes a problem, that now the lines are fuzzy. I mean, it's just like you and me. It's like, you know, back in the day, we drink, we go in there, have sex, and then I throw up everywhere because I'm a puker whenever I drink too much and all this other stuff. And then it's not a fun night anymore. That was all fine and dandy. But now looking back on it, it's like, I wish all those times just were sober.
Right.
I mean, point blank. I would much rather that.
I mean, there have been times that we had had sex and I didn't remember it at all.
Same here. That's why I would much rather no alcohol involved in that. Pretty much at this point in our life, I would rather no alcohol at all unless it's like super special occasion or something like that.
And I think, again, I appreciate us giving our opinion. I think everybody's got their own thing.
Sure.
And some people may need that to loosen up. And there's no judgment here. We're just saying from our perspective and experience, this is what we would
Yeah.
suggest if you are looking for a waypoint, or maybe you're having issues, or maybe, your spouse drinks and they come in and you don't drink and they're reeking of alcohol and then they're like wanting to get frisky. Now, I can't fathom that kind of situation. I'm so thankful that we
Yeah.
don't have that, though. That there have been times I've had drinks and you have not, and I have come in there hot and heavy,
Mhm.
and I can't imagine what that must be like. But
Yeah. I mean, there's times where I've had to say no because of that. I don't want to do that. Like if I'm sober and you're stinking drunk, I mean, it goes back to the consent thing. Like you cannot give me proper consent in those moments.
Right.
If there's times where I don't know that you drank and you're like acting that way, I don't know. You didn't communicate that to me.
Right. So, I think that was something that I wanted to bring up,
Yeah.
and again, just because I think this is the hang on. Two pieces here that I want to bring up, and then we'll kind of give out some advice. It is another piece of sex is initiation.
Mhm.
This one has definitely been hard for us.
Mhm.
I think because of how you perceive sex, like and your take on it, which I love the fact that it is a byproduct.
Mhm.
It is not it is not what indicates love.
Mhm.
Um, I am a very sexually charged person. Does not help that I am like very, 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 very into you.
Mhm.
You just being you turns me on. And I walk around, whether it's biological with my age or whether it's who I am. I walk around like, ready to rumble most
It's like I
days.
said in the first one. You're like a cat in heat most of the time. Just
You
walking
you
around
didn't say
like
most of the time, but now that we put it out there,
walking around, putting that tail up in the air, waiting for me to pet you.
you're not wrong. Um, I think that can be very hard with the expectation of who's supposed to initiate.
Yeah.
As a woman, I want to be wanted,
Mm-hmm.
and I want you to be the initiator.
Mm-hmm.
And for years, there'd be times I wanted to have sex, and we would not. Not because you were not interested, and we've had this conversation outside of this, but because you didn't initiate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wasn't going to do that because I didn't want to be the man.
Yep.
That's a lot of pressure
Yeah.
on a guy. I
And
can
who
imagine.
put that stigma? We talked about stigmas last time. Who put that stigma out there of, oh, the man's always supposed to initiate, or he's supposed to be like the one that's always grab assing and stuff like that? Well, that's not the case. Like,
Get consent from your man before you go grab ass, and not all of them
yeah,
like that.
I don't like grab assing.
Or sticking your finger in your crack,
Yeah,
whatever.
don't do that.
He said, "Don't do that," but seriously.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just a
Spackle it
weirdo.
shut if you're not careful.
I'm just a weirdo like that. But all serious or all jokes set aside, I had a really hard time
Mhm.
feeling comfortable initiating with you. And I'm not saying now like that I want to always be the initiator,
Yeah.
but because and another thing that comes to, well, now, and you know what? He can't not. I'm helping him out. There you go.
Thank you.
I think when I tried to not be or like tried to get out of the discomfort of being the one to initiate, I would request sex. And one of the things they talked about is scheduling it.
Yep.
I think you and I are both on the fence about like it should be natural. But if you were struggling with going weeks, months without it, I think there could be a great benefit to saying, let's set aside this time
Mhm.
to be intimate with one another.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are trying to conceive, come ovulation, these are hump days, right?
Yep. Every Wednesday.
Right? That's not us, but just saying, yeah. Or maybe it isn't. I just don't know that every Wednesday is hump day. So
Let me look at this calendar.
every day that ends in Y. I want it to be natural, but I also want you to know, like, hey, my tail's up. The little the cats do with their tails. Yep. That's my way of like, I will tell you in the middle of the day, and sometimes I'll tell you 2 or 3 times, like, I want you.
Yep.
Probably not in that nice of words, but like I will say, and I will use whatever words I need to say it. Sometimes it's justful, sometimes it's not.
You'll just come over here and be, you got a pretty mouth. Let's go.
Right. And I will tell you, hey, because we've talked about signals being crossed, like, hey, I want to spend time with you. Well, what are your expectations? Are you wanting to go have sex with me?
Yep.
Are you wanting to just watch Dragon Ball?
Yeah, I mean, there's literally been times where you're like, oh, I want to watch Dragon Ball and just hang out with you, and then you get frustrated with me because what you really wanted was to have sex, and those things weren't clear.
Well, I don't, and we had this conversation too. I don't think it was always that way. I think that what happens is we get in there, and my intention is to watch Dragon Ball.
Yep.
Or watch a movie and just be with you.
Mm-hmm.
But then I get around you and I can't help myself. And there are times where my code was I want to spend time with you because I didn't want to be so forward, but you were taking it very literally. Like,
Yep.
okay, I'm not thinking about sex because I'm spending quality time. Not that sex isn't quality time, but just spending time with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because you are so aware of the two being separate, and you're a polite young gentleman, you're not going to say, oh, well, we have time alone. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about this today very briefly, and I stopped all conversations because I wanted this to be, we really try to bring you guys, sometimes we'll talk about the topic, but candid conversations where
essentially we're not wanting to spoil it for each other.
Exactly. Which it's funny that you say it that way, but that's true. Like, I don't want to, I don't want to have the same conversation, and it never comes out the same, even if we have this
Yeah.
discussion beforehand. But there's something I think very special about coming on here and being very us. You guys are hearing a lot of our inner conversations, our private conversations publicly, and with no pause button. So the one thing that we did mention, and that's where I stopped the conversation today, was that I was really hurt until this week, really, where I would tell you, hey, I want you. Like tonight, can we do it? Can we, I would be very explicit about what I wanted because you told me, just tell me what you want. And I would tell you what I want. And then come bedtime, I'm like, ready for it. It's about to be time. Get my cute little outfit on, whatever it is, put the red lipstick on, whatever I thought would be like, okay, if he's coming in here, I want to be at the best for him. Right.
It's so funny. It's just the stereotypical, like, you're all goth mommied out, and I'm just like walking in there with this outfit on.
Your underwear farting, flip rolling into the bed.
All right, let's do this.
But a lot of times, by the time we got in there, you're not even thinking about that.
Yeah.
You're not remembering that we had this consenting conversation where I was telling you this is what I wanted. And oftentimes that was my way of saying like, hey, I want you to initiate. Like I put in my request, I put in my form, said Larra Wallace, am looking for XXX. And I would be very...
No, it's SEX.
I mean, it is XXX too.
I never understood that.
I don't know. Maybe it was the way of not putting the word sex out there. I don't know.
I guess so.
But I would say, hey, I want this specific thing tonight. And so when you would say yes, like, yeah, we can do that. And then we would get in there and you would fall asleep, or you would just be scrolling on your phone, or you would just be, cuddling up next to me, which should have been just as satisfying for me. It would be destructive to me. I would immediately go into what's wrong with me. Why is it that I've told him what I want? I told him in the beginning of the day. I told him midday, and we had a great day. There were no stressors that I knew of from the outside, and now we're here. We have time, especially when you weren't falling asleep, and now you're just doing your own thing.
Yeah.
Help me understand that in the way that I came to understand that today.
Well, I don't know how you came to understand it today.
Because we talked about it earlier.
I don't remember.
Point in case.
I don't remember the conversation.
Well, help me understand it again, and then I'll tell you why I'm saying point in case. Go ahead.
Because I have bad memory. That's probably the main thing that I said earlier. And if I remember correctly, the conversation kind of ended at I have dyslexia, so that a part of dyslexia is bad memory, and then you have ADHD, and part of that is having bad memory. But another part of it is probably also for me, as far as like why I don't want to go in there, things like that, is probably like I don't want to go to sleep. Like sleeping is the bane of my existence. I feel like it's the biggest waste of time, and I know bed equals sleep.
We need to find a new place to do it.
I know, that's what I'm saying. We need to get all these kids out of here. Have a recording studio, have a boom boom room, and have a dang exercise room, and just like that way they can't come back.
Cardio, record.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's partially that.
This is news to me. Go ahead.
There's something else that I was thinking too, but I can't remember what I was thinking a few minutes ago. But mainly that, just like I don't want to go to sleep. And I don't want to go into the bedroom because that equals sleep. And also sometimes I just like hanging out with you, Like
Absolutely.
we have the conversation, and then I'm just like wanting to hang out and play a game or something with you.
I think this goes into the communication piece. Don't say yes.
Yeah.
Don't commit, because I think it's even more of a rejection.
Let your yes be yes and your no's be no.
Right. And the rejection that I feel when you say yes and then you don't, immediately there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, I guess I need to start saying I'm not sure or I don't know, because I don't
Or,
know, because there's a lot of times where I had a long, hard day at work, but my body doesn't catch up like with me until I'm sitting down. If
right.
I'm moving around, I'm fine. But the second that I sit down, I get exhausted, you know?
And I think I all
What? Try it again, Lara. Let's rewind that back. Go ahead.
also,
Uh-huh.
I find myself getting jealous when you are sitting down, but your mind is engaged with something. And I'm thinking, well, how can he stay awake and be engaged with a screen? And then am I not as fun as the video game that you're playing or the video that you're watching or usually those are the turn your brain off kind of things that
Yeah,
you do.
I can see that.
And so it really is a blow to my confidence. I came to the realization earlier this week, but definitely today, to just not ask for it. Like now there will be times where I'm like, hey, I really like I feel like if I'm at a point at this point, new ground rules,
Mhm.
if I'm asking you is because the drawers of toys are not cutting it. I need you. And then at that point, if you're like, you know, I don't know, then I have to respect that, but know that I won't be asking all willy nilly.
Yeah. And that was one thing that I was thinking earlier, which is I think because
But you do forget that was what it was.
yeah,
And I think it's the irony of you forgetting that you forgot
yeah,
that
that
you
is pretty
forget.
funny. Um I think because you've asked less and the pressures that we were talking about earlier aren't as great. And also, you're in a pretty good mind space right now. There's not as much stress with your work and my work and all these different factors. It's been a lot easier for, things to happen. Whether it's me initiating, you initiating, just sex in general has been easier because of all those factors. There's been a lot of times in our relationship where external factors have stressed you out or stressed me out or stressed both of us out because we've worked so close together for so
Or
long
internal factors.
that yeah, but I'm talking more like whenever at your previous employment, there were so many stresses going on there that you're bringing home with you that it's like neither of us were doing anything
Right.
for like a month.
Right. Um
And then you were doing the countdown, which stressed me out. So you being stressed out about the countdown stressed me out, and then made
the
this just
countdown being how many
cycle.
days since the last
Yeah,
encounter.
the sex countdown.
Yep. And so that kind of brings me to, well, I don't want to leave the initiation piece out. Ladies, it is okay and welcomed,
Mm,
correct me if I'm
yeah,
wrong, to
absolutely.
initiate. I don't think that there should be one person always initiating.
No.
I could see how that would be a exhausting
Yep.
or mentally taxing or emotionally taxing. Um, because imagine if you don't always want to be the one initiating the other person. So it may mean that if you're not comfortable initiating, try to get comfortable. One of the things that I've loved that we have just been like this week has, again, because all the stressors, you know, you guys have been with us on the journey through my mental health things and medical things, but this week, maybe a little over a week, has been phenomenal.
Hmm.
I feel like I am more myself and more confident than I've ever been in our
Hmm.
relationship. So it's been very easy to just be comfortable. Not that we weren't always comfortable, but the level of comfort I think that we've gotten to, like where we're just like, you know, laying around in the nude, being silly with one another.
Hmm.
When you can get to that comfort level and that confidence level, it says a lot. And if the person that you're with loves has been intimate with you, and I think again communication is so key, even though it's hard. But if they are able to be intimate with you, they clearly are attracted to your body.
Yep.
And if you're telling your spouse, I'm not attracted to your body, I think there's a problem. I think you conquer things together. If you see that maybe your spouse has put on some weight or they're not doing self-care.
Here's a couple good examples for you.
Yeah.
If you can walk by the bathroom and see your wife shitting and you're still wanting to get with her, ladies, you should be confident. You should be okay. If your husband watched you push a baby out and saw the whole thing, and a month later, whenever you're healed up, you still want to tap that, you're good to go. You're all good.
I do think that there are relationships out there, unfortunately, that one of the significant others is no longer physically attracted to their partner.
Yeah, I get that.
And there are, I think that that's a whole nother podcast, but that needs to be another slogan we have. That's a whole nother podcast. I think that there are ways that you can, let's say your spouse has been so exhausted, they're coming home from work and maybe they're just flopping in the bed. They hadn't showered. They go to work next day, flop in the bed. Is that good hygiene? No. But you are like turned off by the fact that their skin is tacky or they smell or whatever that is. Instead of going up to them and being like, you stink, I want to have sex with you. If that's a boiled down version. Or if they bring it up like, why haven't we had sex? And you saying, well, you smell bad. You saying, hey, babe, I know you're tired. Can I start a shower for you? That's a caring way to talk about it. Yep. Or are you okay? They may not even recognize that things are going on. Let's say your significant other has put on weight. Or, you're like back to you.
Well, back to smells real quick. Another way that you could kind of broach that situation is, I don't really like giving tips like this, actually. I'll give it anyway, but I don't really like giving tips like this because I feel like it's manipulation to a point. But this is initiating and also, like getting them to take a shower.
Do it in the shower.
Well, that, but also just like, babe, I really love the way that your body wash smells. Why don't you go take a shower? I'll get something comfortable on, and then let's.
There are women right now, because immediately this is what my mind went to, or maybe men too, that are like, if my husband told me, I love the way your body wash smells, why don't you go take a shower? Mm-hmm. Immediately, even if he meant it, immediately I'm thinking, I smell bad.
My thing is, and this is why I don't.
Smell probably wasn't a good example, but it happens.
My thing is, I would rather you be 100%, and this is just our relationship. But at a certain point, and it might not be in the first year, but at a certain point, you just got to be comfortable enough with your spouse to be like, bro, your ass stinks. You want to fuck me? Let's go take a shower then.
But that comfort probably means that they're comfortable enough to talk about intimacy things.
It depends on the subject, because there's still insecurity.
If you're telling me I'm stank, then we should be able to talk about sex.
Yeah.
I think.
You say that, but then again, we were talking about farts and stinking and smelling like onions.
Farts are natural body odor like that.
But that's what I'm saying. We were talking about that stuff well before we were talking about uncomfortable or things that made us uncomfortable in the bedroom.
You brought up you stinking. I've never come to you and been like, you smell bad, go take a shower. Or I don't.
There have been. There's been times.
Not in reference to engaging in intimacy.
Yeah, there's been times. There's been times where you're like, I'll be like, Larra, I have to go take a shower first. And you're like, no, just come on over here. And I'll be the judge of that. And I'll throw my underwear at you. And you'll be like, yeah, never mind.
That's a setup. That was me saying, come on over here. And you engaged that conversation. But I can't recall a single solitary time that I've ever said outright without any provocation where you tried to put the moves on me or I tried to put the moves on you and stop the show because of your body. Maybe, I might have seconded that you needed a shower once I got a whiff of you or you threw your underwear.
There are a lot of times where I'm pretty self-conscious of my smells anyway.
Right.
So I'm pretty aware of that, and I'm like, I'm going to go take a shower.
Yeah.
So
my nose is itchy. So we'll get off the smell one. let's say your significant other has gained weight.
Mm-hmm.
Natural, happens, stressors, food.
Well, stress leads to
Stress for
overeating.
sure. But let's say your fella's been working hard, hitting up the kangaroo, trying to get through the day, and you could tell that he's out of shape, and naturally, like you're not attracted to that body type.
Mm-hmm.
Do something about it with him. You don't have to use sex as the pivot to do something, but also having these conversations, like, we've talked about insecurities about body. Communication is so key. And I will go back at the end. I have, 4 different tips for everybody, but talking about it is important. And so back to the initiation.
Mm-hmm. I want to touch on that again too.
Communication.
No, initiation.
I think that if you are not confident in initiating, there are some things for your significant other that you just got to work on together, and I would love to, coming from someone who I'm not confident about initiating. I do want you to initiate because I do like that feeling of being wanted and taken.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially if you are, into some, more K-ink play where you want to be dominated.
Mm-hmm.
And as a submissive, I want you to be dominant in that area. That being said, I have come to the point with us where I've had zero problem initiating.
Yep.
Do I want to do it all the time? Absolutely not.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this again goes out to the women who have a hard time or expect men to initiate. Just like anybody else, we have stress. We have hard times. Sometimes it's hard for us to initiate. Sometimes we're like Labrador retrievers. Our minds are somewhere else and we're not thinking about it. But the main thing is, sometimes it's just hot for your woman to put the moves on you. And, you should be confident in yourself. Like, your man chose you to be with. He chose you to be intimate with. And sometimes it's just freaking hot to come home from work or, go take a shower. And by the time you're out, you're in some kind of get up that, that I like. And, you're just sitting there waiting for me like a Christmas just like a present under the Christmas tree.
Christmas under the present.
Yeah.
And if you do that with the expectation of having sex and it doesn't work out, don't take it as an emotional blow. But men, communicate, like, you look stunning, like, compliment your woman and say, you look stunning right now. I don't want you to think that this is, and if you're going to put on an outfit that says, I'm coming for you, boy, do not be hurt when he says, you look stunning. I love you. Thank you for the effort you put in. My body hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there are creative ways you guys can satisfy each other. Yep. You can self-satisfy and he can watch. There's tons of things you can do. I'll get back around to that.
Hold on. And one more thing. That last tip was really key for women who have a hard time with sex in the first place. And then the guys are always trying to put the moves on the woman. And most of the time it's not working out.
Rejection.
Yeah. Well, not even the rejection part. It's just like at a certain point it's exhausting. And then whenever that guy gets to, have sex with her, it's like, finally. But imagine that same person, that same guy having that stress, and the woman his wife is now putting the moves on him. It's like, holy crap. Like, this hasn't happened since we were teenagers. This is crazy. Like, what's going on here?
Right.
So just like putting that extra effort, putting that on your calendar. Don't do it if you don't want to. But, if you feel your gears are turning a little bit and, you're having trouble with it in general, but today is the day. I'm feeling good about myself. I went to the gym and I'm feeling good about myself today. Don't let that opportunity just go by. Carpe diem. Seize the day.
Seize the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it would be valuable for you to maybe give some insight about your I don't want to say struggle, but why you're less of an initiator than
Mm.
I am.
I mean, there's a lot of factors that we covered some of them in the last one. Um, I'm just I'm just like a kind of a passive person. I've been working on that.
In some areas.
Yeah, in
And
a lot of
I
areas.
think I said that because I think there are a lot of women out there who have dominant men in their
Mhm,
lives. Like, watched any of our content, Bjorn and I have a very specific relationship dynamic.
mhm.
He is the dominant one. This is his house.
Yep.
I am subservient to him. Love it. I would not change it for the world. It's not a that I can't do for myself. I'm a very independent, very confident person, especially in this empowered state.
Yep.
But you are ultimately the dominant one in our relationship.
Mhm.
Like, you are the dominant one.
But to break down what you're saying, I mean, this is things that I'm right now realizing and thinking about and really reflecting on. There's a lot of different factors here of, starting with the single mom aspect and just like always being like my mom was a strong-willed woman, my grandma was a strong-willed woman. Both of like neither of them really ever talked about sex, even though let me not throw anybody but under the bus, but um yeah, both of them were very strong-willed. Neither of them ever talked to us about sex. It was very I grew up in a very conservative family, not conservative Christian because they are Christian, but they didn't really practice a
Like,
lot.
I grew up in a
Yeah.
conservative Christian family. Yeah.
So the and my grandpa, him and my grandma never did anything, never showed any kind of affection. So I didn't really have a healthy example of what that looked like. And
Not
then
not the sexual intimacy
yeah,
part, but
just
the intimacy, and I'm about to get in that piece
yeah.
in a second.
Like the only examples that I did have were either whenever I was really young and my mom was with her second husband and um he was not a good person. And so, I saw good times with them and then I saw bad times. So maybe that in my mind associated like, hey, not so good. And then like later on in life, my stepdad, he was pretty conservative as well. So I didn't really see them touchy feely, like holding hands a lot or anything like that. And my mom was like kind of the initiator as far as holding hands and stuff. And then, that just leads into me being a teenager and just like, again, I didn't really go out looking for a girlfriend, but I also didn't have a lot of luck with the girls. And, again, a lot of my friends were
Good for
girls.
me.
Huh?
Good.
Yeah. But a lot of my friends were girls and it's like very strong willed women who, didn't take crap from nobody kind of situation. Specifically my best friend growing up, kind of same thing. And just because of all these women influences in my life, I kind of view women differently. I view sex differently than the average guy probably would. So I think with all of that being said, it made it mm, probably a little bit more difficult for me to express, hey, let's
I think it was intimidating because
no, it
we've
wasn't
had that
intimidating.
conversation
Yeah,
too.
it's not. You don't intimidate me at all,
No, I know
especially whenever
that.
it comes to sexually. It's just like I don't think about it. Like whenever you have a best friend that's a girl that never once did anything, even into our teenage life, ever lead to any kind of sexual things. Like we never had that. Oh, sneak to the woods to go have a kiss or anything. Nothing like that. And I never saw her as a sister. It was just very much a platonic friendship. It just leads to a like a person who doesn't think of sex on a regular basis or thinks about initiating it. So that's something that I've just had to work towards. Like, yeah, I'm dominant whenever it comes to running my house, taking care of things, working, all this different stuff. But that's one aspect of my life where, I just didn't ever have to think about it. And a lot of times it just happened naturally whenever it did happen.
Um, and so knowing that, some of these things we've talked about before, and some of these things, just trying to get insight for the people who are watching who might be in that position. Let's say your significant other is saying, hey, I want you to engage more. Are there suggestions that you might have on how they can work on that area?
It's just hard. Try to eliminate as much stress and distractions in your life as possible. Once you do it a few times, it becomes easier, just like you were talking about with women. It's like you just have to practice it, kind of thing, just like anything else.
I think being
I'm
conscious.
I'm still not great at it, so it's hard to give advice on that. But yeah, being conscious of it. Just if you need to put alarms on your phone, things like that will help you.
I think that's a good one, because I was trying to think as we were talking about it, like, I guess because of the shift in my mind, I don't really recognize as much that I'm still the primary initiator. Not that once I initiate, you're not right there with me, or participatory. And I think that, I'll come back to that. But I think being conscious of it, that Labrador thing you were talking about, I'm just doing my own thing. Like, that is totally you. Like, I know that you are attracted to me, but you're just doing your own thing. It is important to take into consideration, how do I satisfy my spouse, not just sexually. By any means, please know that this is not saying that neither of these episodes, or this series, if you will, miniseries, has to do with this being the primary thing. Only let's talk about the hard topic. But I think for someone like you who isn't thinking about that, I mean, you can forget from A to B, within a 6-8 hour span, that, oh, I made that commitment to them.
Well, it goes back to the spaghetti and waffle thing. So your mind is more spaghetti, mine's more waffles. And because I'm segmenting things, I'll say yes to this over here and have full intentions of doing it, but then wear myself out because I'm doing this other thing, or don't think about it until it's back. Like, great example of this. Earlier, we were talking about picking up some boxes from your work, taking them to the dump because I was already going to the dump. Right. I was like, well, let me go get that first, put them in our dumpster over here. And from the time I got back to the office, we had that conversation and I did one other task. I forgot about that, went and didn't, clip some more palm fronds, loaded up my truck, and I was like, oh, crap. Okay, now I have to take these.
And I never once took, what's funny is I never once took issue with the fact that you forgot.
Yeah.
Or, like the other day you dropped Aaron off at work, and I could totally see the older version of me, the insecure version of me. You dropped Aaron off at work. You had to go. I could have walked out. You could have waited for 10 more seconds. It wouldn't have changed the trajectory of your day anymore. But you went ahead and left because you had things to do. You were waffled out. You were at work. You were thinking about work, trying to get that done. The same thing happens when you get at home. Sex is not so black and white for people, and the stigma. And that kind of is where, do you have anything you want to add to that? Because I think that's really important.
Not really. I think that covers it as far as, like, sometimes I'm just in this segment of my mind and it's hard for me to transition to this other segment.
And if you guys have any tips, maybe you've struggled with that. Like, we're always open to, we watch podcasts and things, and to learn. And so if you have any tips on maybe you've struggled with that, let us know. And same thing, ladies, if you have struggled with the same thing, I'm welcome any advice or any conversation about it. So 2 things that I want to get to, and then I want to give out our, the tips here. Number 1, just because frequency has changed does not mean quality changes.
Sometimes the quality gets better.
So I would say that if I look back from that hot, heavy, lustuous, again, I don't know if that's a word, but it is now, and it should be, sex that we had,
Mhm.
and then where we're at now. Quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the sex may be more infrequent, and we go through periods where it is a week or a week and a half. I don't keep track anymore, but it could be days back to back, or 2 times a day. Who knows? Whatever natural life leads to. Sex does not always have to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
You may have heard the term vanilla versus not. Like, there are so many things out there.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't explored with your partner, do that, because
Yep.
I would say that I already thought the quality was good
Mm-hmm.
because of how passionate we were, and how much I loved you. Like, you could have just been like 2 pumps and done. I'd be like, that was great. I was just so into you. And I wouldn't care how it ended. Um, I would say that, like a fine wine or a bourbon. I don't think of bourbon when it comes to you. You're
Yep.
not a wine, you're a bourbon. A barrel aged bourbon over here. Just gets stronger and better.
Yep.
I think that you guys can do things to spice it up, and
Yep.
you should do things to spice it up. Like Bjorn said, get you a drawer full of toys. If you don't like something, get rid of it. Find out what your spouse is comfortable with. Go there together. Outfits, makeup. You could be a whole different person. Maybe you're into role playing. Maybe you're not into role playing. There's bondage. There's a lot of stuff, and
As simple as a blindfold and ice.
I don't know.
I mean, that's really as easy as it can get, just to do something different.
Right.
Um,
Put
and
on some music.
Yep.
Change the lighting.
Yep. Turn on the lights.
Right.
There's a lot of people that won't turn on the light. There's so many different things that you can do, and it's like we talked about in one of the last podcasts. I don't know if I've edited that one yet, but um, it's gonna be messy. It's gonna be interesting, but it's gonna be fun at the end of the day. And it might not end with anything happening. You might get the giggles and just that's the end of it. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
You can come back to it later on and give it an hour and whatever. I don't really recommend food in the bedroom. For me personally, I'm not a huge fan of it. It's
Not
just
even Nutella.
sticky and messy and kind of whatever. Maybe as a novelty thing and try it once or whatever. But that's just me personally.
There's nothing wrong with trying something.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna come. I'll give you guys some tips on that. Back to that.
Excuse me.
Okay. And then the last thing, and you mentioned this, and I just really, when I recognized that it was okay for me to initiate, that you were into me no matter what,
Mhm.
and especially these last few months have really, sorry, something in my eye.
Is it really, or you?
It started off that way, and then I had to reel it in. Okay. These last few months, if you have not left me yet, with all the trial and error with the medication, with all the trials and tribulations with what came with that, and my mental health and the chaos of taking on 3 kids, and raising them, and being an exceptional father, and all that you have. Ladies, men will show you their love in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Start off with the 5 love languages, so you're seeing that. Sex, you can work through, easy peasy.
Yep.
And if you can't, you can be creative, and again, I know sex is very important to a lot of people. Evaluate why it's so important to you,
Mm-hmm.
what you're missing, what you need. But if you're getting your love cup filled and you're understanding each other, I think that, like you said, sex is a byproduct.
Mm-hmm. Hold on. Just talking about, I just thought about this. There's a lot of women out there, and I'm sure there's some guys too, but there's a lot of women out there that really, really struggle with sex. And if you're one of these women, don't don't feel pressured. And this goes back into spicing things up. Don't be pressured specifically into having sex with him. Yes, you should be trying to do aphrodisiacs, figuring out things that help you along the way and kind of get you in that mood. But in that meantime, like I said, go to the store, go to the toy store. Well, like you said, really. A lot of it, most of it is probably going to be things for women. But there are things for guys. Pick some out. If you're like me and you don't want to look at the box and see another, you know, I don't want to see a man on your box and you don't want to see a woman on my box, if you know what I mean. We don't want them to look too anatomically correct, right? Because that does kind of cause a weird.
They do get anatomically correct down to the person. That
Yeah.
This is so and so's body part.
Yes. So pick something out for him, and then throughout the week, take some pictures of yourself. It doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be a photo shoot.
Doesn't even have to be naked.
Yep. I mean, it doesn't have to be this whole thing.
It can be, and it's very empowering to do it at home.
Yep. But it could just be something simple, and give that to him. And that's just one way to keep it spiced up, keep it, a little pseudo voyeurism kind of situation where it's like you're in a bathroom, the door's locked and everything like that, but you're in a bathroom and you're like taking a little shot, you know what I mean? That just spices it up. Send it to him while he's at work.
What kind of shot?
Like a little.
Yeah, but I want that to be the thumbnail.
Oh my gosh. But anyway, you're taking a little picture for him. You send it to him at work, and imagine he's in a construction job or out on the farm, and he looks down at his phone and he's like,
"Wowza, guys, look at that!" No,
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. No, I'm already giving them. No, I would never.
So if you know that you're that type of person, really extend yourself and give out things like that. And then for the guys, women aren't like us. It's not a switch. Even though I'm not the most like super horny guy, it's still like it doesn't take a lot, to get the engine running. Where sometimes ladies, it takes a while. You gotta freaking, I'm trying to think of an analogy. You gotta kind of rev the engine. You gotta
warm the engine.
It's like an old Chevy on a cold night.
New analogy. Start over.
What do you mean?
Old Chevy.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
It's like I don't know. It's like a cat who's kind of grumpy at first, and you gotta kind of.
He's got no positive.
You gotta give him a treat. You gotta give him the catnip. You gotta do all this different stuff, and then you can pet him, and then he'll start purring. You know what I mean?
Or a feral cat that you have to feed to get them to warm up to you.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes it's
not
just
everything
like
can be a Bjornism.
A couple weeks, or not a couple weeks, but a couple days of like kissing and ass grabbing and all this other stuff, whatever she likes. Some chocolate, some roses, all these different things.
There you go. Because maybe your woman doesn't want her ass grabbed all the time because that is her. Because women will, just like men will, learn the signs. Like, oh, she's been doing this. She wants something. Find out what makes your lady feel special. Does she enjoy it when you maybe come rough her up? There's plenty of good non-corn articles. If you are trying to avoid that kind of stuff, be careful what you search for, or you can turn on safe search or blur or whatever. Be mindful of your content. But there are lots of ways to say, to go online and figure out how do I build sexual tension or desire in my spouse.
Or if you don't want your wife to feel insecure about you going online and looking things up, you just say homework for you. Send me some articles that you want me to read to understand your mindset and understand where you're coming from.
Right.
And another thing, guys, and there's 1 in 6 guys have gone through this, but 1 in 4 women who have gone through some kind of trauma in their life. And we have to understand that from somebody that's never had any kind of real trauma in their childhood or anything like that. There's a lot of women out there who have gone through something like that, and sex doesn't mean the same thing that it does to us. And we really have to be gentle with that and understand why does she have this, hard time with intercourse, and why does she have a hard time being touched? Maybe she doesn't want to be kissed on the neck. There's a lot of different variables here. And, women's minds are already, whenever it comes to sex, are already working uphill versus a guy. So just, there's a lot of variables. Be sensitive and communicate. Don't just go in at like, oh, because then she doesn't really want to be with, like, doesn't want to have intercourse with you.
Right. And just, an outlier thing. And then one more thing, and we'll land the plane, as you like to say.
Okay.
There are also women who have experienced trauma, who that comes out in the bedroom in a very different way.
Yeah.
There are women who have been taken advantage of, who then want to play out fantasies where they're in control of the situation, the very situation that scarred them to begin with.
Yep.
Or who want, a lot, you will hear this in a lot of dom sub relationships, where the submissive likes the more pain and more physical harm things, even though their trauma is that of physical harm.
Yep.
It is a safe and controlled way for them to even process that. And, it can be even therapeutic. So
that's a whole nother bag of worms.
whole nother podcast.
Yep.
Please do not take any of what we said and confuse intimacy with sex. And I'll echo what you said earlier, that the after of cuddling or just holding one another. I mean, I'm just think about this week coming in and laying down with you. And now that I'm not so hyper fixated on needing that to feel wanted or desired, being able to just enjoy, you just rubbing my hair, which went, not that we have time to do that during the day anyway. Not that you don't come by and you occasionally pet my head, but especially for someone who is not usually physically affectionate like that, where it is just the two of you in the bedroom. Maybe it's just sitting and talking. I mean, we did that last night or the other night, where we just sat for like an hour or two, well later than we should have, just chatting about whatever. And I'm going to, during one of the tips I'm about to get into, talk about, how that can come into play. But intimacy is so much more than sex. It is, looking into your partner's eyes.
Yep.
It is being able to sit closely on the couch, hold hands, write love notes to one another. It is.
I want you guys talking about looking each other in the eyes. I don't mean to interrupt, but
no, please do.
I would forget. I want you guys to, for 5 minutes solid.
Way harder than you would think.
Yes, 5 minutes. Sit cross-legged or just straight across from each other, touching each other's legs. You can't really see us right now. I'm trying to demonstrate it, but her legs and yours and hers, or sitting, in front of each other, just touching in some kind of way. Look directly in each other's eyes, and for 5 minutes, set a timer. Don't look at your phone after that, and just sit there and look at each other. You can talk. You can, tell each other positive affirmation. You can tell each other, whatever, how your day was, all these different things. But just for a solid 5 minutes, and if the other person looks away, remind them, hey, over here, like, and you'll understand intimacy at that point. You'll understand what that means, because most likely you haven't done that since you first started dating. You haven't taken a moment to look in your partner's eyes for 5 minutes or less since the beginning.
Right.
And so you can really see what intimacy, what compassion, what love, what just examining your partner's face really does for you.
I would really suggest not talking about, like, if you're really trying to work on intimacy, not talking about random stuff. Like, I feel very fortunate with you and I that we do take that time to look at one another. Now that we're talking about it, I'm like staring
I
into
know.
your soul. But being able to do that. And again, we've come through so many things and we've worked really hard on our relationship, and every day it's a process and every day we're learning something new. Um, but if you haven't practiced, I think a lot of our intimacy comes in our conversation, just being able to talk the way that we do. But really focusing on that person, and maybe you try to think about the things that you really love about them. And if you guys have a hard time, again, I think that if you are watching this video and you're putting this before the 5 love languages, or you're putting this before communication, while it's important, I think that this is a byproduct type of video. But remember the things that you love about them. Think about the good times that you had. Think about what an amazing person they are. And it makes it it is super intense.
Yeah, amplify it. Well, the reason why I said, talk about whatever for the first time at least, maybe
or start with a minute and talk about whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever comfort.
I would do the 5 minutes for sure, because, you want to stretch yourself with that, but start with random conversation because of how intense it is. But then later on, almost treat it like a freaking, like, what is it called? Like a nature walk or something like that. What is it? Like Native Americans? I can't think. Like an ashwagandha thing where you're like focused on this one thing, really diving into, who your partner is and who they've evolved to become in the last X amount of time.
Right. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So tips that you can take home, get a pen. I guess you could. Yeah, you can still watch the YouTube if you're on your phone. Pull up your notes. Just keep the little square up there. Keep our faces somewhere on the screen. You can move us around to whatever you need to do to type. Bjorn, I'll give you the opportunity, but I'm going to throw out things that are important takeaways. So number 1, and we'll come back and we'll do a whole episode on this, but talking about this starts with, if you want to break the cycle of this kind of this kind of struggle, if you have kids, talk to your kids. Talk to your kids about sex. Talk to them about the difference between sex and love and lust and love at the appropriate age, but education. Number 2, if you want to cross this bridge and sex to not feel like a chore, or to feel like a burden, or to feel negative, try new things. Okay, whether it be an outfit, get you a sassy little outfit. Even Walmart sells outfits, right? It doesn't have to be anything special. Find out what your guy likes. You'd be surprised when you find out, like, hey, he's all right with me just wearing some PJs and some long socks. And
hey, I like it whenever you wear long socks and your little stuff comes over.
Yeah. I didn't know, but apparently guys don't mind if you got a little.
Not that we don't mind, we like it.
Extra fluff, or extra, maybe you got thick thighs and the little bit of thick spills out of the socks and they aren't perfectly flat with your body. That's empowering. I would have never known had I not asked that. At least my husband enjoys that. Put on some music. Sometimes it doesn't have to have words. While there's great love making music, Apple and I'm sure Spotify you can look up music to have sex to. You can look up love making music. Who knows what you're going to get?
No, we went to an Airbnb one time and there was a TV in the camper there, and Juliet went to go. Who were we going to go see? This is a total side tangent. It was so funny.
Mr. Ballin.
Yeah, we went to go watch Mr. Ballin. We go to the Airbnb that we're at, and
Which was a camper, by the way.
She's like, "Oh, I want to show you some of his actual videos," and she went on their TV, went on YouTube, and very first thing was sex music, love making music, all this other stuff, and we were like, "We're gonna sleep on this instead of on that bed."
And we all 3 cuddled up on the
little fold-up bed, which probably wasn't much
I was
better.
gonna say, I don't know if they were watching or listening. And if you have a hard time, because a lot of times we'll get the giggles about lyrics.
Yeah, I can't. It takes me out of the moment whenever there's lyrics on, even if it's like smooth whatever, it just takes me out of the moment.
So get you some tribal music, get you some, Norse music.
We listen to Norse music because I don't understand the lyrics, so
works for us.
Gives us a really animalistic kind of feel.
I got really into that. Lighting. Get you an LED light, red, green, blue, yellow, whatever floats your boat. You can dim it. Put on, make you some wall sconces. I'll do a video on that. A DIY sconces. Yep.
Yeah, we have smart bulbs, so we can tell our assistant to turn it down, turn on red, blue, whatever color we're feeling at the moment.
Find out if your man's into a lipstick, or what kind of makeup he likes, or how he likes your hair, or maybe a combination of all that. I love the idea of taking photos, and they don't have to be nudie photos. So ladies, it is incredibly empowering when you get comfortable enough with yourself to send photos. And quick little tip, if you're trying to send photos and you're like, well, I don't have a tripod, turn it around and it's awkward, find a spot to set it up and then put it on record, like record a video. Did you fart?
No.
Okay, I smelled fart. Sorry.
That's your own breath, woman.
Totally. No, sir. Maybe. But turn on the video and you can screen capture in the video.
Yep.
Screenshot that. Oh, I know. And then the toys, again, don't be afraid. And it is okay at first if you go in there and you're like a little kid and a weirded out teenager and you run out, just try things.
Yep.
And then for goodness sake.
Hold on. Mm-hmm. Don't skip past the store. Find a good quality store that has good quality employees that know what they're talking about. I think all these stores are trying to clean up their act a little bit, because whenever I was coming up and I was 18 and I was able to go into these stores, sketchy people in these stores. But now I think they're really trying to get educated people, and they're working and who have experience with these things. Like we went to a Hustler USA or whatever it's called. And in the back where, they had clothes up front and then they had the toys in the back. And there was a lady back there that honestly, to me, wasn't fair educated, but I could see where somebody new could feel comfortable enough to come up to this person and be like, what does this one do? What does that one do? And really having that person, giving you that one-on-one time to explain things to you.
Yeah. And they usually, I have not had an experience where it hasn't been in a scientific matter.
Yes.
Very matter of fact. Yeah. And then listen, this has been quite enjoyable for many reasons. And this goes back to, it doesn't have to end in sex. Go online, do yourself a favor and Google sex positions. There are plenty of, you could pretty well look at the domain that you're about to click and decide, am I about to get in trouble? They have comics or like characters, right? Not even people colored, like there's blue and purple or what. You will have a good time just looking at them and laughing about their faces or their lack thereof.
Or the names, like the teeter-totter.
Yeah, or the cloacal, what, I don't know. Yeah. There's a bunch of different, the pile driver. Yeah.
Am I watching moves. WWE or am I trying to get some new moves? What's going on here?
But not only can you get a good giggle, and it kind of takes the intensity, and it's not corn, but it's still like you get the idea, and then try a move, even if it's not like for intimacy purposes, like it can just be fun. And when you can get to that level of comfort where you're doing things with your body that don't really make scientific sense based on that picture, but you're trying it, and again, not for pleasure but just for fun, it really does lessen the seriousness of it, because sex is meant to be fun. Yeah. It's meant to be connective, but it's meant to be fun.
Culture has made it more serious than what it should be.
Yeah, get your little Karma Sutra and check them off as you go. They tried it, did not work. Tried it, loved it, tried it, hated it, tried it and shouldn't have.
Do a punch card. Find 5 of them that range in easy to difficult.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And then at the end of it,
and it's
go on a cool date night. If we reach this level, then we can go to freaking
Universal. Because they do
Universal.
have difficulty letters, though. I'm about to go make a punch card right now. I'm going to go to Universal.
I do want to go back to adult stores and stuff like that real quick.
I'm still hung up on the adult store.
Well, I just thought of something that would probably be helpful. Now I don't know if this is everywhere. Our Walmart's kind of unique, where
I think it's pretty well everywhere now.
No, I'm saying that the stuff's not locked up. Like if you go into a bigger city, a lot of the stuff's locked up. But if you want to be more discreet, but you want to see the things in person, because I know you can buy them on Amazon and others.
Everyone you know in Walmart. What are you talking about?
Well, I'm saying discreet as in I'm not going to a store.
Mm-hmm.
Also, maybe you don't want to go into a store where everything is like phallic. There's titties out. There's all kind of different things. There's DVDs.
You don't want to get shocked the first time.
So if you and your partner want, or even you by yourself want to get something small, something, that isn't like
an investment.
An investment, blatantly a phallic object, or I don't know what the female version of that is. Go to Walmart. They have your condoms. They have your freaking pregnancy test, and they have your toys there.
It's in the health and beauty section,
and your lubes and things like that, which are very important. Read the instructions on your lubes. Become very friendly with those because they are important. I mean, even with your toys, like some toys aren't good with.
We could do a whole podcast on that.
Certain lubes because it could damage them. So really pay attention to what you're doing. But yeah, just go there. Get the awkwardness out of the way. Your face is going to turn red. You're going to see the camera up there and all this other stuff.
Wink at it, wave at it, whatever you got to do.
Just get your thing and go home and have fun.
Self-checkout. You can put it between a loaf of bread and something else if you get self-conscious. I mean, you could always buy rope zip ties and a baseball bat or an axe or something.
What the heck are you doing with a baseball bat?
And
an axe?
I was trying to think of...
What are you talking about, woman? Let's get back to...
questioning you, like, there's the murder, like the rope.
What are you talking about?
And then you get the toy in there and they'll think, oh, I'd rather be seen, like, with the possible murders. Okay.
Stop while you're ahead.
I don't know.
What are you talking about?
Some real kinky stuff. Well, I could have... Anyway.
Okay.
And then the last thing, above all else, talk.
Yep.
Communicate.
Yep.
If I had been able to formulate these thoughts and not been intimidated by the conversation, and I think too, it does help to have an incredibly wonderful, receptive partner who's done their own work on themselves, and not all of us are as lucky as I am. I feel I'm just very lucky. And the fact that, again, our anniversary episode, I get to sit here and celebrate 6 years with you and have such incredible conversation about such difficult topics, and know that not only have you been doing your own work, but that I can sit here and you really listen to what I say and take that into account is and I'm sure a lot of ladies would agree that is a 1 in a million feeling that, I won the lotto. And I really believe that I won the lotto with you. And you can have your own lottery if both of you are willing to, put in the work. So excuse me, super late in that, great. That'll build intimacy. Listen, if you can't go in the bedroom, fart, do it, and then fart again, you got a problem.
Well, just going back to talking real quick. Sit down with your partner with 2 notebooks, one for him, one for her, and say, hey, whoever's initiating the meeting, hey, I'm ready to really get serious about our intimacy and have fun with it, but be serious, like, on what I like and what I don't like. I don't like how your teeth do this, and I don't like where your fingers go when you do that. And it's like, really sit down and talk about these things so nobody's going into the bedroom with these false expectations. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Don't take it personal. Like, everybody likes something different, and maybe you are inexperienced. It's helpful to have someone to guide you. And again, Corn is acting. So what you're seeing on there may not be what the other person likes or how they like it. Or just because you saw some actress, making lots of pleasure noises does not mean it was pleasurable for her.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 2, maybe you're really experienced, but the person that you're with is going to be different than the other people that you're with.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, you just want to if anything, you just want to make sure that you're pleasing your spouse, and the only person who knows what they like is them.
Yep.
And maybe you just have a spouse who likes everything you do.
And then also, as you're experimenting with the toys and experimenting in the bedroom with the Kama Sutra and doing all these other things, it's okay to try something and then afterward be like, you know what? Not for me.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. Or even during saying, we tried it. Not for me. I don't really care for this. Let's move on to the next thing.
Right.
And then whenever you're done, write it in your journal. Hey, she didn't like that. He didn't like that. Cool. Now we know. Don't like a pickle behind the dang kneecap here. Cool. We got it. Everybody knows. Everybody understands.
You could put his pickle behind your kneecap if you wanted to. Anyway, so I appreciate you guys on this very long journey. I think it was a very important conversation to have. I know we're long-winded, but welcome to a very easy to clean to YouTube channel.
Sometimes whenever I'm watching like To Be Better or like this new couple that we're watching, the ADHD Love, I'm just like, I want more.
Right.
So hopefully somebody's listening to this and they're like, they gave me too much.
I can tell you one person who watches our videos who says they gave me too much. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us on this very special anniversary episode.
Yep. It's a 2-parter anniversary episode.
I know. And hopefully now we will go enjoy our anniversary and you enjoy your evening.
Yep.
And
till next time, stay a little odd.
Because we are.